Welcome back, aspiring cybersecurity professionals, to episode 10 of our comprehensive cybersecurity course. I'm your instructor, and I'm thrilled to continue our journey into the fascinating world of digital security. In our previous episodes, particularly episode 9, we laid a crucial foundation by exploring the core concepts of cryptography, delving into the intricacies of symmetric and asymmetric encryption, hashing, and the fundamental principles that make secure communication possible. We understood how data can be encrypted and decrypted, ensuring its confidentiality. Today, we're going to build directly upon that knowledge and tackle some of the most critical elements that underpin secure communication on the Internet: SSL/TLS, digital signatures, digital certificates, and the overarching framework of public key infrastructure, or PKI. These aren't just theoretical concepts, they are the invisible guardians that protect your online banking, your social media interactions, and virtually every secure website you visit. We'll peel back the layers to understand exactly how that little padlock icon in your browser works, how we establish trust online, and why these technologies are indispensable in safeguarding our digital world. Get ready to demystify some of the most powerful tools in a cybersecurity professional's arsenal. Let's dive in. Before we leap into today's topics, let's quickly recap a key concept from our last episode: asymmetric encryption. Remember Alice and Bob? Bob has a pair of keys, a public key, which he can share freely, and a private key, which he keeps secret. When Alice wants to send a confidential message to Bob, she encrypts it using Bob's public key. Only Bob, with his corresponding private key, can decrypt and read the message. This elegantly solves the problem of secure key exchange for confidentiality. However, a fundamental challenge remains: how does Alice know that the public key she's using actually belongs to Bob? What if a malicious actor, let's call her Eve, intercepts Bob's public key and replaces it with her own? Alice would then encrypt her message with Eve's public key, Eve would decrypt it, read it, and re-encrypt it with Bob's real public key, sending it along. Bob would never know his message was compromised, and Alice would be none the wiser. This is the trust problem. In the vast, anonymous expanse of the Internet, we need a reliable way to verify identity and ensure that the public key we're using truly belongs to the entity we intend to communicate with. This is where digital certificates and the entire public key infrastructure come into play. The trust problem is precisely what protocols like SSL and TLS were designed to solve, providing the S in HTTPS. When you type https:// into your browser, you're not just requesting a web page, you're initiating a complex dance of cryptographic operations designed to establish a secure, encrypted, and authenticated connection with the website server. Let's clarify the terms. SSL, or Secure Sockets Layer, was the original protocol developed by Netscape back in the 1990s. It revolutionized web security. However, due to various vulnerabilities discovered over time, SSL has been deprecated. Its successor, TLS, or Transport Layer Security, is what we primarily use today. While many still colloquially refer to it as SSL, practically speaking, modern secure connections use TLS versions like 1.2 or 1.3. Think of TLS as the more robust, more secure evolution of SSL. Its primary job is to provide three critical security services for communication over a network. First, confidentiality, ensuring that only the intended recipient can read the data. Second, integrity, guaranteeing that the data hasn't been tampered with in transit. And third, authentication, verifying the identity of the server you're communicating with, and optionally, the client. This trio of services forms the backbone of secure Internet communication. Understanding HTTPS fundamentally means understanding the TLS handshake. This is a multi-step process that happens in milliseconds every time you visit a secure website. Let's break it down. 1. Client hello. Your browser, acting as the client, initiates the process by sending a client hello message to the website server. This message includes a list of the TLS versions it supports, the cryptographic algorithms, cipher suites, it prefers, and a random number. 2. Server hello. The server responds with a server hello. It selects the highest mutually supported TLS version and cipher suite, provides its own random number, and crucially, sends its digital certificate. 3. Certificate verification. Your browser receives this certificate. It doesn't just trust it blindly. It performs a series of checks. Is the certificate still valid? Has it expired? Is it issued by a certificate authority, CA, that your browser trusts? Does the domain name in the certificate match the website you're trying to visit? If anything is amiss, your browser will warn you, or even block the connection. This step addresses the trust problem we discussed earlier. 4. Key exchange, pre-master secret. Once the certificate is validated, your browser generates a pre-master secret, a random string of data. It then encrypts this pre-master secret using the server's public key, which it extracted from the validated digital certificate. This encrypted secret is sent back to the server. Only the server, with its corresponding private key, can decrypt it. This is a critical moment where asymmetric encryption is used to securely exchange a secret. 5. Master secret and session key generation. Both the client and the server now possess the same pre-master secret. They combine this with their initial random numbers to independently generate a master secret. From this master secret, they then derive a set of symmetric session keys. These keys will be used for all subsequent communication during this specific session. 6. Finished messages. To confirm everything is in order, both sides send finished messages, encrypted with the newly established symmetric session key. This verifies that both the client and server have successfully completed the handshake and possess the correct keys. 7. Encrypted communication. Finally, with symmetric session keys established and verified, all subsequent data exchanged between your browser and the server is encrypted using this fast and efficient symmetric encryption. This ensures confidentiality and integrity for the duration of your browsing session. This entire dance is what allows you to securely log in, send sensitive data, and browse with confidence. Now, let's zoom in on a crucial component that underpins much of what we just discussed: digital signatures. While encryption is about confidentiality, digital signatures are about proving authenticity, integrity, and ensuring non-repudiation. Think of a digital signature as the electronic equivalent of a handwritten signature, but far more secure and verifiable. Here's how it works. 1. Hashing the document. First, the sender takes the message or document they want to sign and runs it through a cryptographic hash function, like SJ256. This generates a unique, fixed-size string of characters called a message digest, or hash. Even a tiny change in the original document will result in a completely different hash. 2. Encrypting the hash. Next, the sender takes this message digest and encrypts it using their own private key. This encrypted hash is the digital signature. 3. Attaching the signature, the original document, along with its digital signature, is then sent to the recipient. Now, for verification. 1. Hashing by recipient. The recipient receives the document and the digital signature. They independently run the received document through the same hash function to generate their own message digest. 2. Decrypting the signature. Simultaneously, the recipient takes the received digital signature and decrypts it using the sender's public key. Remember, only the sender's public key can correctly decrypt a signature made with their private key. This yields the original message digest created by the sender. 3. Comparison. The recipient then compares the message digest they generated from the received document with the message digest they decrypted from the digital signature. If they match, it proves two things. First, the document has not been tampered with since it was signed, integrity. Second, it verifies that the signature was indeed created by the sender, because only the sender's private key could have created a signature verifiable by their public key, authenticity and non-repudiation. Digital signatures are vital for trusting software updates, secure email, and, as we'll see, for validating digital certificates themselves. The concept of digital signatures leads us directly to digital certificates. If a digital signature proves who signed something and that it hasn't been altered, a digital certificate is like a trusted digital identity card for individuals, organizations, or even servers. It's what binds a public key to an identifiable entity. Think of it this way: you have a physical ID card or passport. It contains your name, photo, and other identifying information. It's issued by a trusted authority, like a government, and often has security features to prevent forgery. A digital certificate serves a similar purpose in the digital realm. What does a digital certificate contain? Subject's public key. This is the core component. It's the public key of the entity the certificate is issued to, e.g., Google's public key for google.com. Subject information, details about the owner of the public key, such as the domain name, for websites, organization name, location, etc. Issuer information, details about the entity that issued the certificate, known as the certificate authority, CA. Validity period, not before and not after dates, indicating when the certificate is valid. Serial number, a unique identifier for the certificate. Digital signature of the issuer. This is the crucial part that establishes trust. The certificate authority, using its own private key, digitally signs the entire certificate. This signature allows anyone to verify that the certificate itself is authentic and hasn't been tampered with, and that it was indeed issued by that specific CA. So, when your browser receives a server's digital certificate during the TLS handshake, it's not just getting a public key. It's getting a public key attested to by a trusted third party, the CA. This certificate essentially says, I, a trusted CA, certify that this public key truly belongs to this specific website. This is the cornerstone of establishing trust on the Internet. Digital certificates don't just exist in a vacuum, they are part of a larger, sophisticated system known as Public Key Infrastructure, or PKI. PKI is essentially the framework of policies, procedures, roles, and systems required to create, manage, distribute, use, store, and revoke digital certificates and manage public key encryption. It's the invisible scaffolding that supports secure digital interactions globally. The core components of a PKI typically include 1. Certificate authorities, CAs. These are the trusted entities responsible for issuing and managing digital certificates. We'll delve deeper into them in the next scene. 2. Registration authorities, RAs. These entities verify the identity of certificate applicants on behalf of a CA. They act as an intermediary, ensuring the applicant is who they claim to be before the CA issues the certificate. 3. Certificate directories. These are secure, searchable repositories where certificates can be stored and retrieved. 4. Certificate revocation lists, CRLs, and online certificate status protocol, OCSP. These mechanisms are used to check the validity status of certificates. Just like an ID can be revoked, a digital certificate can also be revoked if its private key is compromised, or if the entity's identity changes. CRLs are lists of revoked certificates, while OCSP provides real-time status checks. The beauty of PKI lies in its hierarchy of trust. At the very top, you have a small number of highly trusted root certificate authorities. These root CAs issue certificates to intermediate CAs, which then issue certificates to end entities like web servers, email servers, or individual users. Your browser and operating system come preloaded with a list of trusted root CAs. If a certificate can trace its lineage back to one of these trusted roots, your system will trust it. This chain of trust is fundamental to how the Internet verifies identities. Without PKI, the web as we know it, filled with secure transactions and authenticated communications, simply wouldn't exist. Let's focus more closely on the certificate authorities, or CAs. These are the linchpins of PKI, acting as highly trusted third parties. Their entire business model revolves around verifying identities and issuing digital certificates that bind a public key to that verified identity. When we talk about trust on the internet, much of it boils down to trusting these CAs. When a website owner wants an SSL/TLS certificate for their domain, e.g., www.example.com, they generate a public/private key pair and create a certificate signing request, or CSR. This CSR contains their public key and identifying information. They send this CSR to a CA. The CA then performs a rigorous validation process. For a standard domain validated, DV, certificate, they might simply verify ownership of the domain. For more extensive organization validated, OV, or extended validation, EV, certificates, they conduct thorough checks on the organization's legal and physical existence. Once satisfied with the identity, the CA uses its own private key to digitally sign the certificate, asserting that the public key contained within belongs to the verified entity. This signed certificate is then returned to the website owner, who installs it on their server. If a CA's private key were ever compromised, it could be used to issue fraudulent certificates, completely undermining the trust model of the Internet. This is why CAs adhere to incredibly strict security protocols and undergo frequent audits. Your browser and operating system maintain a built-in trust store, which is a list of pre-installed, trusted root CA certificates. If a website certificate can be validated back to one of these trusted roots, your browser shows that reassuring padlock icon. Popular CAs include companies like DigiCert, Sectigo, GlobalSign, and even the nonprofit Let's Encrypt, which provides free certificates, making HTTPS more accessible for everyone. While certificates are designed to be valid for a specific period, typically a year or more, what happens if the private key associated with a certificate is compromised, or if the organization changes its name, or simply goes out of business? We can't just wait for the certificate to expire naturally. This is where certificate revocation comes in, a critical aspect of trust management within PKI. If a private key is believed to be stolen, or if a certificate was issued improperly, the certificate must be immediately invalidated. The certificate owner or a responsible party informs the issuing CA, which then revokes the certificate. But how does your browser or operating system know that a certificate it previously trusted is now invalid? There are two primary mechanisms for checking revocation status. 1. Certificate revocation lists, CRLs. A CRL is essentially a blacklist, a digitally signed list published periodically by a CA, containing the serial numbers of all certificates that it has revoked. Your browser can download and cache these lists to check if a certificate is revoked. The challenge with CRLs is that they can be large, take time to download, and might not be entirely up to date between publication intervals. 2. Online Certificate Status Protocol, OCSP. OCSP offers a more real-time approach. Instead of downloading a large list, your browser sends a query to an OCSP responder service, asking for the revocation status of a specific certificate. The responder immediately returns a good, revoked, or unknown status. This is faster and more efficient for individual checks. Most modern browsers and operating systems use a combination of these methods, often favoring OCSP for speed and then falling back to CRLs or other proprietary checks. The effectiveness of revocation mechanisms is paramount, as a compromised but unrevoked certificate can lead to widespread security incidents, allowing attackers to impersonate legitimate entities and trick users into trusting malicious sites. This constant vigilance in trust management is what keeps our online interactions secure. Despite the robust nature of cryptographic protocols like TLS and the PKI framework, they are not impervious to attack. Attackers constantly seek vulnerabilities to exploit. One of the most prevalent and dangerous cryptographic attacks, particularly against secure communications, is the man-in-the-middle (MITM) attack. In a MITM attack, the attacker positions themselves discreetly between two communicating parties, intercepting and potentially altering the communication without either party being aware. In the context of HTTPS, when your browser tries to connect to a secure website, an attacker, Eve, intercepts your connection request. Eve then acts as a proxy. She establishes a separate, legitimate TLS connection with the actual website server. At the same time, Eve presents a fake digital certificate to your browser, claiming to be the legitimate website. This fake certificate might be self-signed, or, in more sophisticated attacks, signed by a compromised CA, or even generated by exploiting a vulnerability that allows her to trick your browser into trusting her certificate. If your browser doesn't detect the fraudulent certificate, e.g., if you click through a warning, or if the attacker has installed a rogue root certificate on your machine, you establish a TLS connection, not with the legitimate server, but with Eve. Now, Eve has two separate secure connections, one with you, and one with the actual website. She can decrypt all traffic from you, read it, potentially modify it, and then re-encrypt it and send it to the legitimate server. She does the same for traffic coming back from the server. From your perspective, you see the padlock icon, and you believe your communication is secure. But in reality, Eve is seeing everything. This highlights why strict certificate validation and the integrity of certificate authorities are paramount. A common way to detect MITM is for your browser to flag an invalid or untrusted certificate, which is why it's crucial never to ignore browser security warnings. Beyond man-in-the-middle, other cryptographic attacks target different aspects of secure communication. Let's look at a couple more. First, we have downgrade attacks. These attacks specifically target the negotiation phase of protocols like TLS. During the TLS handshake, the client and server agree on the highest mutually supported version of TLS, e.g., TLS 1.3, TLS 1.2, and the strongest cipher suite they both support. A downgrade attack involves an attacker interfering with this negotiation to force the client and server to use an older, weaker, or even deprecated version of the protocol, like SSL 3.0, or a less secure cryptographic algorithm. Once the connection is downgraded to a vulnerable protocol or a weak cipher, it becomes much easier for the attacker to break the encryption and access the communication. A famous example of a vulnerability enabled by downgrade was Poodle, padding Oracle on downgraded legacy encryption, against SSL 3.0. Modern TLS implementations have built-in protections against simple downgrade attacks, but vigilance is always required. Second, we have replay attacks. This type of attack focuses on reusing legitimate data transmissions to achieve an unauthorized effect. Imagine you log into your banking website. Your browser sends an encrypted packet containing your username and password. An attacker might intercept and record this packet. Even if they can't decrypt it, they might later replay or retransmit that exact same encrypted packet to the server. If the server isn't designed to detect and reject old, replayed requests, it might process the replayed packet as a fresh login, granting the attacker access to your account. To prevent replay attacks, secure protocols often incorporate mechanisms like nonces, numbers used once, or timestamps in their messages. These unique identifiers or time-sensitive data ensure that each message is fresh and cannot be resent successfully. These attacks underscore the importance of not just strong encryption, but also robust protocol design and implementation. Let's bring these concepts to life with a real-world example you encounter every day. Open your web browser right now and navigate to any major website that uses HTTPS, like google.com or your online banking portal. You'll notice that familiar padlock icon in the address bar. That padlock is your visual cue that a TLS handshake has successfully occurred, and your connection is encrypted and authenticated. Now, click on that padlock icon. You'll typically see a message like, "Connection is secure" or "Certificate valid." Click further, usually on "Certificate" or "More information." This opens up the digital certificate we've been discussing. Here, you can examine its contents. You'll see the subject name, which should match the domain you're visiting, e.g., .google.com. You'll see the issuer name, identifying the certificate authority that issued this certificate, e.g., Google Trust Services, DGCert. You can view the validity period, confirming it's not expired. And critically, you can often see the certificate path or certificate chain. This shows the hierarchy: the website certificate, signed by an intermediate CA, which in turn is signed by a root CA. If this chain of trust leads back to a root CA that your browser trusts, the padlock stays green. What happens if something goes wrong? If a certificate is expired, or its domain doesn't match the website, or if it's signed by an unknown or untrusted CA, your browser will immediately throw up a prominent warning, often a red screen saying, "Your connection is not private." This is your browser protecting you from potential man-in-the-middle attacks or insecure websites. This immediate visual feedback, backed by the complex PKI system, is how users are empowered to make informed decisions about online trust. It's a testament to the power of these cryptographic building blocks working in harmony. While the PKI model is incredibly robust, its Achilles heel is the trust placed in certificate authorities. A compromise of a CA can have catastrophic consequences, as tragically demonstrated by the DigiNotar incident in 2011. DigiNotar was a Dutch certificate authority, a trusted entity whose root certificate was included in major browsers and operating systems. In the summer of 2011, their systems were severely breached by attackers, who managed to issue over 500 fraudulent SSL/TLS certificates for high-profile domains, including Google.com, Facebook.com, Microsoft.com, and intelligence agencies. The primary target and impact were in Iran, where these fraudulent certificates were reportedly used for widespread surveillance and man-in-the-middle attacks against Iranian citizens trying to access secure websites. The implications were profound, undermining trust. For months, anyone in Iran, and potentially elsewhere, using a browser that trusted DigiNotar could have been unknowingly directed to malicious clones of legitimate sites, with the browser still showing a secure padlock. Global response: once the breach was discovered and confirmed, major browsers like Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Internet Explorer took the unprecedented step of entirely revoking trust in all DigiNotar certificates, including its root certificate. This meant that any website still using a legitimate DigiNotar certificate would suddenly show a severe security warning to its users. Company collapse: the incident was so damaging to DigiNotar's reputation and financial viability that the company declared bankruptcy shortly after. The DigiNotar breach served as a stark reminder that the entire security of the Internet hinges on the trustworthiness and uncompromised integrity of certificate authorities. It led to significant changes in how CAs are audited, how quickly browsers react to breaches, and how certificate revocation is handled, further strengthening the PKI ecosystem. It truly underscored that in cybersecurity, trust is not just a concept, it's an operational imperative. We've covered a significant amount of ground in this episode, moving from the fundamentals of secure communication to the intricate systems that make the Internet a safer place. Let's quickly recap the key takeaways. SSL/TLS, and therefore HTTPS, are the essential protocols that provide confidentiality, integrity, and authentication for web communication, ensuring your data is private and untampered. Remember, TLS is the modern successor to SSL. Digital signatures leverage asymmetric cryptography and hashing to provide authenticity, integrity, and non-repudiation, proving who sent a message and that it hasn't been altered. Digital certificates are the digital identity cards of the Internet. They bind a public key to a specific entity, like a website or an individual, and are digitally signed by a trusted certificate authority. The entire system operates within the public key infrastructure, PKI, a robust framework for managing the lifecycle of these digital certificates, from issuance to revocation. Certificate authorities, CAs, are the cornerstone of PKI, acting as trusted third parties that verify identities and issue certificates, making the chain of trust possible. We also explored the critical importance of certificate revocation and mechanisms like CRLs and OCSP, which allow us to quickly invalidate compromised certificates. Finally, we looked at common cryptographic attacks like man-in-the-middle, downgrade, and replay attacks, understanding how adversaries try to circumvent these security measures and why constant vigilance in implementation and user behavior is crucial. The concept of trust is central to all these technologies. From the browser's trust in a root CA to your trust in that little padlock icon, these mechanisms are designed to build and maintain a verifiable chain of trust across an otherwise anonymous digital landscape. Understanding these components is fundamental for anyone looking to secure digital assets and communications. And that brings us to the end of episode 10. I hope you now have a much clearer understanding of how your online interactions are secured by SSL/TLS, digital signatures, certificates, and the powerful PKI framework. These are not just theoretical concepts, they are the invisible guardians of our digital lives. Your understanding of cryptography is now significantly strengthened, and we've covered how trust is established on the Internet. In our next episode, episode 11, we're going to shift our focus from individual communication security to network security fundamentals. We'll explore critical perimeter defenses like firewalls, delve into threat detection systems such as intrusion detection systems, IDS, and intrusion prevention systems, IPS, and understand how virtual private networks, VPNs, create secure tunnels over insecure networks. It's an essential module for understanding how entire networks are protected. So, if you found this episode valuable and insightful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to stay updated with our course, and leave a comment below with any questions or topics you'd like to see covered in more detail. Your engagement helps us build an even better learning experience. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in episode 11, where we continue to build your expertise in cybersecurity. Stay curious, and stay secure.